The truth will always set you free. The truth will always set you free. But the problem is that we are okay with the idea that the truth will set us free only when that truth is favorable to us. And we don't really have an open mind to realize that truth can come in all sorts of forms. The truth doesn't necessarily care about your specific feelings, your specific point of views, your specific thoughts, emotions, none of that. The truth is just the truth. And the sooner we're able to train ourselves and our minds to look at truth as a pure being in itself, regardless, completely detaching our emotions and ourselves from that truth, that's the truth that's going to set you free. So, welcome to the Mindset Mentors podcast. On this episode, I am going to be talking about how we can open our minds and our eyes to the truth and learn to completely surrender to that truth. Surrendering, a lot of people assume, is just kind of sitting in meditation all day or just kind of giving up and saying, I'm not going to do any of this anymore, and just kind of using surrender as an excuse to not show up and to not follow that inner voice or that guidance or do the work necessarily to get to what they want. That is so wrong. Surrendering to the universe, surrendering to God, surrendering to your higher self, surrendering to a life. It's all about doing your best every single day by showing up 100% to what is right in front of you. Okay? And this is where I think truth and surrender kind of come in. Because we think when we surrender to the process, surrender to God, and surrender to the universe, we think that that's going to bring us a reward in a way that is going to be favorable to us. But that's not the truth. The truth is that you will get whatever is meant for you to get. You're not going to get what you think you want, but the universe will always give you what it is that you need. Think about just your life in general. I wanted you to think back to maybe 10 years ago. Let's think about the first time you fell in love with somebody, okay? And that love felt so intense. It felt such a high. You felt so good in that first love. And when that first love, as a lot of first loves, didn't make it to that end result of what you envisioned it to be. And let's say that you were so heartbroken, you thought you were never going to find love again, you thought there was something wrong with you, you thought that maybe you weren't enough, maybe you didn't do enough, maybe you made a mistake, right? And you probably went through maybe a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a few years of heartbreak, only to years and years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, you understand why it was the way it was, why it was that relationship didn't work out, why it was that that person wasn't meant to stay in your life. You can only connect the dots going backwards, right? So I want you to use those examples to kind of give you more peace in surrendering to the truth, right? So in that example, let's say 10, 15 years later, you come across the same person, you realize that person would have never worked out for me. That person, sure, was a great catalyst, a great learning lesson. It was a great chapter in my life to learn certain lessons, to grow, to develop myself, to shape my worldview in certain ways. But that person would have never worked out for me long run. And you realize that all that suffering that you were going through in that heartbreak period, which let me tell you is completely valid because it is actually in those moments that we actually do a lot of growth and personal development and things like that. But the suffering didn't have to be as much as you kind of allowed it to make you feel. A lot of times we allow suffering to consume us. And we allow the suffering to consume us because we think life should go a certain way. But what if we just accept life for the way it is? What if we just see life as a divine being in itself? What if we face life as it is in its truth? Again, that truth of facing life, that's not necessarily going to be what you want it to be or you think it should be. You face life and you come to terms with complete truth of what life is as it is, and you surrender to that truth by showing up as your best self every single day, by doing the things you're supposed to do. And how do you know you're supposed to do those things? It's right in front of you. It's the opportunity is presented to you. Even if the most you can do on a single day is doing your laundry, if that is, you believe, the best that you can give for yourself on that single day, that is the best that you can give in that day. When we think of doing our best, and that's why I have such an issue with like fake positivity and this capitalistic system where everyone's an entrepreneur and everyone's like starting a business and selling courses and all these things. We're so flooded by that kind of narratives on social media, on TV, in magazines, and all this advertising and all this stuff around us that we think that we're not doing our best when the best that your being can do on some days is just doing your laundry or just doing the dishes or just taking yourself out for a walk. And that's okay. You know, that's okay when you truly believe that that is the best you can do for that day. And you have to believe it with every single part of your being, right? Even if there's a little ounce of guilt, you have to be able to come back to yourself and say, hey, do I feel guilt right now because I am not doing my absolute best? Or do I feel guilt right now because I think I should be doing my best? Or I think I should be doing more because everyone else is doing more? Surrendering to life, surrendering to truth is actually really freeing. And that's why I started this episode by saying the truth will set you free. Because the end of the day, after you go through this whole process, right, of the healing journey or the hero's journey or spiritual awakening and all of that, which let me tell you, I'm not 100% there. But a pattern that I keep noticing in my own healing journey and my own spiritual journey is this truth, which is life does not care about your feelings, your emotions, your the amount of hard work you necessarily do, the amount of praying and begging that you do, the amount of journaling or meditation that you do. Life will give you what it gives you. It's on you to meet life where it meets you and continue to keep giving your best and accepting what life gives you back. And you take that again and you continue to give your best. And when things don't go your way, yes, of course, it's a little sad. And of course, it feels really heartbreaking if you feel like there's no end out of this. But why do you think there's no end out of this? What if you lean into the fact that that is the emotion, the experience that life wants you to experience? Because what I have noticed is that every time I meet the truth for what it is, even if it's so painful, even when I feel like I'm losing all control, and every time I surrender to that feeling of not being in control, I've actually risen above that feeling. It takes me a while, I'm not going to lie. It takes me a week, sometimes 2 weeks. But every time I sink into the feeling that life is allowing me to feel, and I surrender to the truth of life, I rise above it. A part of me is mended, a part of me heals, a part of me has a new perspective, and a part of me is stronger. What doesn't kill you make you stronger, as cheesy as that is and all of that, it's true. You remind yourself of that and realize that Shakti energy, and I love talking about spirituality and Hinduism because I was born and raised Hindu. Hinduism is a huge part of how I see the world and see life, and I'm really drawn and attracted to Hindu religious texts and teachings. I'm not an expert, but what I've come to realize is that Shakti energy, which is life force energy, you can't see it as just the good. You have to accept. And if you want Shakti energy, which is life force energy, to be on your side, you have to accept both the negative and the positive completely. Just as much as when you have something amazing and great happen in your life, you feel so much excitement and you're so happy and you have this rush and this drive and you feel so good. When you have a unfavorable event happen, you sink into that as well. You sink into that feeling of whatever feeling that you're feeling, sadness. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. If you want to be gone and isolated for a little bit, do that. But don't do that in a way of trying to run away from those feelings. Do that in a way where you feel like your entire being is sinking into that feeling. Because let me tell you, every time I felt like I am allowing myself to be consumed by my feelings and consumed by those emotions, I actually get out of it a little bit quicker. The more you accept the things that are happening around you, the more that you accept truth for what it is, regardless if it's positive or negative, and the more you train your mind and reframe your mind into thinking of every situation as a situation that's happening for you, because that's what you need in that moment, and you surrender to that life force energy, the less disappointment you'll have in yourself, the less effects of sadness and suffering you will feel, and the more peace you come into. The more you give it up to the universe. I didn't say give up, right? I said give it up to the universe to take care of things that are not in my control. And I continue to show up with my best self, giving my best every single day. Sometimes my best is 80%, sometimes my best is 2%. And that's okay, right? Coming into terms and understanding who you are, what your capabilities are, what your max potential is, understanding yourself, coming into terms with yourself, all of these things will bring you into a place of deep acceptance, first of yourself, and then of the universe and of life itself. And you'll actually start falling in love with the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs, because you have life experience that you can use as evidence and realize that, hey, every time I've felt like my absolute lowest, every time I've just cried my heart out because I had no idea what I was doing, every time I hit that rock bottom, there was an up that was coming. And the same way when you're going up, you're aware now that, yes, I'm going up, but I'm going to stay humble and I'm going to keep going and prepare for another potential low. Okay. And an interesting thing is also when you kind of spend enough time with you, when you really understand your life patterns and how things work, you have a lot more peace, because the ups and downs don't go like this anymore. They kind of go like that, right? So you realize that, and essentially, even through the ups and downs, you're not staying linear. You're kind of going up and down on like a forward projectile motion, right? You're still kind of growing on that scale. Another part of this is that it's so easy for us to just be so happy and thankful to God and the universe when everything is going your way, right? It's really hard to have that faith when things are not going your way. And that's when you need to cultivate this feeling of love for yourself, for the universe, for life, and for truth. The more you stand with the truth and accept truth as life and accept life for what it is, with the good, bad, ugly, the mess, all of that, the uncertainty, the love, but also the hate. The more you accept life with all of the parts of it, and you sink into it, and you keep smiling and you keep telling yourself that, you know what, I have given my life to life, and I will show up for life in ways it wants me to show up. And I will go through the motions of life, and I will feel sad when life wants me to feel sad. Because end of the day, I have surrendered my life, to universe, to this bigger purpose that I don't know. Because I have always come out of it stronger, and I have always figured a way out, And I will continue to always figure a way out, and I will accept with full honesty with myself whatever life is trying to teach me. When you get to that point, you will feel true peace. And it's hard, again, to stay in that space of true peace, right? You have to practice it enough, because what happens when you reach a point of true peace, your ego will come up and say, hey, this is kind of boring. Peace is actually kind of boring. Peace is actually, it's not very dopamine rush driven kind of a feeling. The peace is calm and quiet. So, you know, as humans, if we still have that that drive for us to want more dopamine, sometimes we may go and start trouble again, and we may want to feel more suffering, and we may want to go and create problems for ourselves. But with awareness that that's probably your ego, that might help you bring you back into more of a center, and being more balanced. So I hope you were able to get something out of this episode. I have started season 3, and I'm calling it season 3, although we don't really have season on this podcast. These episodes are going to be shorter because a lot of people don't have a lot of time, honestly, and patience in this social media 3-second scrolling phase. So my podcasts are going to be about 20 minutes. I'm going to keep it on 20 and under 20 minutes, maybe a little bit over. But they're going to be to the point, straightforward, and it's going to be anchored in honesty. And I know honesty as someone who has been in the self help space for a while, for the last 5 years, but I've been exploring self help on my own and also working with people in the self help community. There's a lot of fake positivity and a lot of wishful thinking, honestly, that goes on here. And a lot of times in that space, the truth gets lost. And the truth a lot of times gets lost because, again, it comes back into this feeling of us being kept in capitalism that is anchored in, how to take more of your money. So just like the healthcare industry that makes money from you being sick, unfortunately, I've noticed that the self-help community is also the same, where they want to keep you in a cycle of being sick. And sometimes they don't share the truth with you because the truth will set you free, and which means you're not going to come back and give them money. So yeah. So that's it with this episode. I hope you were able to get something out of this. I will see you on the next episode. If you haven't already, subscribe. Find me on social media, like and comment anywhere on social media. Send me a DM. I love just kind of talking to people on DMs. And sometimes the comments are also very insightful, and I learn a lot from you guys as well. So continue to engage. And if you're new here, I hope you come back, and I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, this is Nikki K signing out. Bye, guys.